Despite the ever-growing dependency on digital technologies to run any kind of organization, there's no downtime allowed for mission-critical data. Downtime can do serious damage to an organization's bottom line and reputation. In fact, people's tolerance for non-critical data downtime is pretty limited too. In addition, some organizations, like government agencies, hospitals, businesses in the financial sector, must adhere to regulations requiring businesses to have continuity and disaster recovery plans in place. Business continuity and disaster recovery are two closely related practices that help keep an organization running even in the wake of disaster. Any number of events can throw a business into a crisis mode: a massive power outage, a flood, hurricane, or other natural disaster, or a cyber attack that steals, corrupts, or locks down the organization's critical data. The world is unpredictable. Here, we'll talk about the importance of having a BCDR plan and how to get there. For a deeper dive, click the link above or in the description below to explore our complete collection on all things BCDR. Business continuity and disaster recovery are closely related, but they're not the same. Let's look at each of them. Business continuity, or BC for short, refers to the procedures an organization puts in place to keep mission-critical functions going during and after a disaster. BC requires comprehensive planning focused on long-term challenges to an organization's success. Disaster recovery, or DR, is more reactive. DR concerns specific steps an organization must take after an incident so it can resume operations. But both BC and DR focus on unplanned events. They also share a goal: to get the business running normally again as fast as possible. So how does an organization begin building its BCDR plan? It's useful to break down the process into its BC and DR components. Your business continuity plan should contain certain elements like contact information, change management procedures, guidelines on how and when to use the plan, step-by-step procedures, and a schedule for reviewing, testing, and updating the BC plan. Your disaster recovery plan ought to feature elements like a DR policy statement, guidelines for when to use the plan's goals, defined responsibilities of the DR team, a summary of key action steps and contact information, incident response and recovery steps, authentication tools, geographical risks, and the plan's history. Your disaster recovery plan should also consider staffing requirements. You want to be sure the personnel who can execute the DR plan are always available if needed. Good business continuity and disaster recovery plans accomplish several things. They are clear about the varying levels of risks to the organization. They provide well-defined and actionable steps for resilience and recovery. They protect the organization's employees, facilities, and brand. And they include a communications plan. Your plan could also establish a common set of metrics, such as key performance indicators and key risk indicators. In short, a good BCDR plan details actions from beginning to end. The team that builds, manages, and, in the event of a disaster, executes a BCDR plan should be cross-functional, drawing upon multiple stakeholders and expert staff from across the organization. Who leads the team depends on the type of organization. In a large enterprise, for example, the risk management officer often chairs the BCDR team, and the vice chair is often someone from the IT department. In smaller organizations, either the CFO or IT department head typically leads the team. Other team members should be representatives from the organization's key business departments, such as finance and accounting, facilities management, legal, including in-house and outside counsel, marketing, and public relations. Bringing all these stakeholders together to develop a BCDR plan can be a challenge. Appointing a project manager to shepherd the process can help. So you've got the team in place. What's next? First, the BCDR team members should perform the Risk Analysis and Business Impact Analysis, or BIA. A risk analysis identifies the risks and their likelihood, while a BIA determines and evaluates the impact of an interruption on critical business operations. Conducting a risk analysis and a BIA will identify the most critical aspects of the business and how quickly and to what extent they must be running after an incident. Write out the step-by-step procedures first. Then the resulting documents should be consistently tested, reviewed, and updated. Other steps in BCDR planning include creating risk mitigation and emergency communications plan. The latter details the method or methods an organization will use to disseminate information on an emergency to employees. Testing the BCDR plan will show if planned recovery procedures should work as expected. But what do we mean by testing? Tests can range from simple to complex. A simple test might be a discussion-based tabletop exercise that walks participants through the planned steps. This type of test helps employees with BCDR roles become more familiar with the response process and lets administrators assess the effectiveness of the current BCDR plan. A complex test would be a full-scale test simulation where participants perform their BCDR functions rather than just discuss them in a tabletop exercise. These drills might involve the use of backup systems and recovery sites. Not surprisingly, testing takes time, funding, management support, and employee participation. The testing process also includes pre-test planning, training test participants, and reporting on the test results. How often to test? Well, that depends on the type of organization. Larger enterprises should conduct tabletop exercises at least quarterly. Smaller organizations can test less often. A full BCDR test, which is more time and resource intensive, might be conducted annually. An organization setting out to create a business continuity and disaster recovery plan can draw on many types of aids. They include established standards, templates, software products, and advisory services. Let's start with standards. There are government and private sector standards bodies that publish BCDR guidelines. Two prominent ones are the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, and the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO. After you have a good grasp on the best standards for your organization to use, look for available templates. Templates are preset forms that organizations can fill out to create BCDR planning documents. If your organization uses a disaster recovery service provider, they may have a template to use. Specialized BCDR software can also help organizations build a plan. This type of software typically covers BIA and risk assessment and may also help include incident response capabilities. Another option is to outsource the organization's BCDR needs to a third-party firm. But remember, a specialist BCDR planning service can do risk analysis, plan development, plan maintenance, and training, but it's up to your organization to first analyze its needs accurately. Smaller organizations might want to turn to cloud-based offerings like Disaster Recovery as a Service, or DRaaS. With DRaaS, a third party replicates and hosts physical or virtual servers to provide failover in the event of a business disruption. A BCDR plan's number one nemesis is change. Even the best BCDR strategy, backed up with thorough planning and tests, must be updated. A 5-year-old BCDR plan is unlikely to be effective in an emergency. So be sure to put a change management process in place. Typically, the change management process covers 6 major activities: identifying a potential change, analyzing it, evaluating it, planning for it, implementing it, and finally, reviewing and closing out the change process. Here are a few developments to keep in mind as your BCDR plan evolves. First, cyber attacks are likely to increase. In many organizations, though, cybersecurity and business continuity are distinct, separate functions. Think about putting them under the same roof. Second, it's a back-to-the-future scenario with tape storage. Some organizations are already returning to this method to preserve a copy of their data offline and off-site. It's a tried and true way to isolate files needed for recovery from the corporate network, which could possibly be attacked. Third, expect AI's influence to increase. AI can help a BCDR team make planning decisions. It could also play a role in conducting BIAs and risk assessments. AI could also support incident response, recommending actions based on the details of unfolding disaster scenarios. Finally, you'll likely see managed service providers play a bigger role in the future of BCDR. This is especially likely for SMBs that lack internal expertise. MSPs can advise clients on BCDR planning and make technology recommendations. Some MSPs offer disaster recovery as a service, others partner with vendors that provide that tool. It's important to remember that threats in technology aren't the only changes to keep an eye on. An organization changes too. Acquisitions, divestments, or new lines of business will also demand a BCDR update.